This is 3 Points with Chris Mannix, part of the Volume Sports Podcast Network. I want to welcome in everybody that's listening on AMP. If you're listening, you're probably already subscribing, but if you're not listening on AMP, make sure you subscribe to the Volume Sports on AMP. Subscribe to my feed on AMP at Chris Mannix as well. I'm joined this week by Mark Medina, longtime NBA writer. Both of us fresh off the Vegas experience. Mark, I am just getting back. Have you left Vegas yet? Or are you still entrenched in that 110-degree weather?
Chris, no, I escaped the 110-degree weather last night just as everyone was trickling out. I mean, it was very clear that Monday, Tuesday had a much different feel than opening weekend than when it was all about Victor Wembanyama. So I figured I should get out ahead of everything.
Yeah, it really is about those first 3 days. And then the high picks usually shut it down, though Brandon Miller was still playing when I left on Wednesday. So there's that. But a lot of the activity gets done in those first few days, and a lot of the team executives are there over those first few days. And that's where I want to start, Mark, because Damian Lillard is still the topic du jour in the NBA. He is the biggest superstar out there yet to be traded. And it doesn't feel like there's an end in sight at the moment. Joe Cronin, the general manager of the Blazers, he had some media availability on Monday. He talked about how his takeaway line was, if it takes months, it takes months. And he seemed determined to make sure he was going to get the best package for Damian Lillard, whether it was from Miami or if another team enters the mix. You spent a lot of time talking to league executives, I'm sure, over the last few days. What's the buzz you were hearing about Lillard and his future?
Yeah, it's interesting, Chris. A lot of mixed feelings. There are people that think that he's going to get traded any minute now, and surely it'll get at least resolved before training camp. And then there are others that actually believe Portland's current message, that they are comfortable with having Damian Lillard enter training camp still with the organization and, wait until there's a deal leading to the trade deadline. So I think that just illustrates that there's just so much fluidity, so many unknowns. And when you look at Portland, the reason why they're saying that they're comfortable with that is, one, regardless of what people are saying, people around Damian Lillard are saying that he wouldn't report to training camp if he's traded to another team outside Miami, or if he's still with the Blazers. They liken it to the Kevin Durant situation last season with Brooklyn, where clearly he wanted out, but when the Nets didn't trade him, Kevin Durant loves basketball. He is a professional, even though we do scrutinize what he does on social media. On the court, he's usually about the right things, and he's very consistent. And there's a feeling within Portland that Damian Lillard marches that same drum up. He's a professional. He produces. He doesn't want to be the bad guy. But look, they didn't think up until this point, maybe at the end of this season, that Damian Lillard would ever want out. So it is very interesting to see how both sides are trying to handle the beginning of what ultimately seems like a divorce.
Yeah, what I was trying to root out over these last few days was, is there another offer out there? Is there a team, Boston, Philadelphia, the Clippers, Utah, mystery team X? Was there one out there willing to make a serious offer that had the attention of the Blazers? And the answer was a resounding no. The only offers at the moment have come from Miami. I think that's fair to say. The Miami offer, I don't know exactly what it is, but it's certainly some, combination of Kyle Lowry or Tyler Hero. You've got Nikola Jovic there. You've got Jamie Vasquez, the first-round pick there. You've got a couple of first-round picks to deal in the back half of this decade. So, the Heat are in play. I don't get the sense, Mark, anybody else is in play. And that's the problem, the biggest problem the Blazers have right now. There is not a bidding war for Damian Lillard. And maybe they don't need a bidding war, but they need competition, because Miami's sitting back learning the same things I'm learning, that nobody's out there looking to make a deal. I think Boston's interest, I would describe it as nominal right now. Maybe if you're giving Damian Lillard away, they'll find a way to make it work. But the math in Boston's tricky, because you're probably having to throw Derek White into that deal. And the Celtics really, really like Derek White. And I just don't know if they're going to do that. The Knicks are keeping their powder dry. The Nets, it doesn't sound like they're all that interested, at least from what I'm getting. the Sixers still have their own free agent problem or trade problem to deal with than James Harden. So that was kind of my biggest takeaway from the last couple of days, that there just isn't an offer out there beyond what Miami's putting on the table for Damian Lillard, which puts the Blazers in a really tough spot and puts Miami kind of in the power position, because not only are they the team that Damian Lillard publicly has professed a desire to go to, they're the only team bidding. And that may, that's the case now. Will it change a week from now, a month from now, 4 months from now? Do the Blazers have the appetite to find out? I mean, it's not good business for your team long term. Bringing Damian Lillard to training camp is not useful, because look, we only got 21 minutes of Scoot Henderson, but he's the goods. Like, Scoot, I had some executives talking to me about, I was asking them Scoot versus Brandon Miller. They were like, how about Scoot versus Wembanyama? Like, there's a lot of people out there with a lot of faith in Scoot Henderson. So you want to give this kid the keys to the kingdom, and you want to not have the shadow of Damian Lillard and trade talks hanging over them. But it seems to me like the Blazers, unless something changes, have two options. One is to take whatever Miami's going to give them, and two, bring Lillard to training camp and hope that over the next few months into the season, a better deal materializes. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. And when you're looking specifically at Miami, they're not a team that ever bids against themselves. They're very shrewd with how they manage the cap. They're very shrewd and knowing how to upgrade around the margins. And they're very shrewd with knowing when is the time to make that big deal. The only real, I wouldn't say disadvantage, but like the concern that Miami might have is, look, they got to their second 8th seed to get to the NBA Finals in NBA history, but clearly that idea of running it back isn't sustainable. Hence, they won again the sweepstakes.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
they literally don't have the same players as they had last
right,
time.
right.
So
exactly.
like, their starting backcourt right now is what? Kyle Lowry and Duncan Robinson. Like, that's
I mean, Gabe Vincent's obviously already off the board here, but the reality of their comfort level entering this season without those moves, maybe it's not ideal, but they know that things are built for post All-Star, post trade deadline. That's when things matter as far as making that push. So I think that as much as Portland says, you know what, we're comfortable with entering the season without a deal with keeping Damian Lillard on the roster, I think Miami is also comfortable with waiting. And then it's just a matter of who blinks first. Now,
well, there's some risk there too, Mark. There's some risk with Miami waiting, because like, what if, and now we're playing the speculation game, but what if Philadelphia moves off James Harden and manages to get a first-round pick plus expiring contracts back from the Clippers, and then they go into next season and they get off to a sluggish start, and Joel Embiid starts grumbling. I think that would motivate Philadelphia to turn to Portland and say, all right, here's Tyrese Maxey and 2 firsts. Do better than that. And I'm not sure the Blazers could do better than that. So I agree. Right now, Miami is in a strong position, but if somebody else emerges and if they make a better offer, Miami's screwed too, because Miami's got Jimmy Butler, who's 34 years old this season. Bam Adebayo is still in his prime, but they've got no backcourt. Kyle Lowry, last year of his contract, like, they run the risk of being wasting the last couple of years of Jimmy Butler's prime down in Miami.
Yeah, Chris, there's 2 things to chew on here. I no doubt it's already been out there. I know that you've written about it. Others have been written about it, that a third team's got to be involved. But there's some people at Summer League and even before that that's also floated the idea that, this whole deal about Damian Lillard and James Harden, it's going to be part of one huge deal. I don't know what it looks like. It's going to be so complicated, but as far as, each deal is going to be tied together at once, involving 3, 4, who knows what other teams and draft picks, role players, expiring contracts. But the other thing, and I don't necessarily agree with this, but this is part of Portland's thinking, is that they feel that Damian Lillard and Scoot Henderson can coexist, even though Scoot is clearly more comfortable when he has the ball in his hands, but that it can maybe placate some of Damian Lillard's frustrations that happened when they didn't trade the number 3 pick. And then when their big free agency move was giving Jeremy Grant this gigantic contract for 5 years, that he sees this as almost when Kobe Bryant, in 2007, when he was demanded a trade, and all of a sudden they're getting off to a reasonably strong start. And it was like, you know what? I think we're fine the way we are, and then they make a deal during the trade deadline. But I think, to your point, clearly they're in a direction where Scoot's most comfortable as the primary playmaker, and they are a young team that if you're going to have a player that is used to having the ball in their hands and being the number one guy, it could cause more problems than not, even though Damian Lillard, consummate professional, great team guy, wants to win. It just sets up for a very awkward dynamic. But that's, where the Blazers' current thought process is.
Yeah, I mean, look, Scoot Henderson is going to be a great player. I'm pretty convinced of that. But they're going to be bad next year. Like, there's nothing that can prevent that. Like, they made no moves, none. They brought back the guys that made up a 33-win team last year. They've got organic improvement, sure, from Shaedon Sharpe, who every summer league watcher will tell you is awesome. And Anthony Simons is a year older, a year stronger. Scoot Henderson, of course, is going to make some impact, but that's the ceiling of that team is playing. It just is. Because look, they were 33 wins last year. And yeah, they tanked the last 10 games of the season or so when they were kind of out of the mix. But before that, they were largely healthy. Like, this wasn't like, oh man, Lillard's gone for 30 games during the chunk of the season. They were healthy for most of it. Grant played, Nurkic played. Like, they didn't have like a major injury that derailed their season like we've seen from some other teams. They're just bad. The only reason to bring Damian Lillard back is because the offers were so bad that you can't do it. You can't justify dealing the greatest player in franchise history for that. So we'll see how that plays out over the next couple of months. Victor Wembanyama, on Friday afternoon, he stunk, right? Like, he's the worst player ever. Summer league reactions were everywhere. Oh my God, overrated. Oh my God, not strong enough. All the things you read. Then Sunday plays considerably better, understandably, and looks like the number one overall pick we kind of expected. I don't want to take too much away from two summer league games. I looked at Wembanyama and I saw a guy that's going to be dominant defensively from day one. He blocked 8 shots in the 2 games he played. He altered probably just as many or more. He's got great instincts. He's got an 8-foot wingspan. It's just, you can't shoot over him. It's impossible. He's as good a defensive player as we're going to see in the league next year, at least in terms of paint protection. I think he's pretty good in terms of pick and roll protection too. I don't think he's completely overwhelmed, which says a lot because he is 7'3" and not the fleetest of foot. Offensively, I think he's a good low post player. He's obviously got the length to get a lot of putbacks, offensive rebounds, things like that. I think he plays with an aggressiveness. I think his jump shot's got a long way to go. I mean, last year in the French league, he shot 27% from 3. You can see why. Like, he's a flat-footed 3-point shooter. Like, there's no fluidity to his perimeter shot right now. I also don't think he's going to be able to dribble, play off the dribble as much as he did last year in France, and certainly we saw at times at Summer League. I mean, Mark, that ball's got a long way to go before it hits the floor and bounces back up to his hand. So he's probably going to have to learn to play, away from that style a little more. But he's a good low post player. I like him when he faces up with his back to the basket. I think there's a lot of offensive tools he can unlock. It might be the case, honestly, as I watch him, where he's not the rookie of the year. Like, he's not, this dynamo early on. But I came away from Summer League believing he's going to get there. He's going to put on some muscle. He's going to, develop more of a 3-point shot. San Antonio, even though Chip England's no longer there, like, they have been renowned over the years at fixing jump shots, whether it was Kawhi Leonard or Richard Jefferson before that. Like, they're very good at, turning you into a good perimeter shooter. So I came away a believer in Victor Wembanyama. What did you come away with?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, under the guys at Summer League, and while I do understand the fan frustration, the debut, just for the simple fact of, not being able to see a cool moment, it didn't mean anything beyond that. But I think what he showed is clearly the strengths that he has are going to be very distinguishable, and it's going to make him dominant. I mean, you hit it on the head with how great of a rim protector he is. He's a great team defender. I thought that he looked very composed with his movement when he didn't have the ball, but when he was passing it. I think some of the things, the obvious physicality, he's got to adjust. He looked like he was forcing the issue during the debut, but I think it was more of a product of him trying hard because he wanted to live up to the moment. But I think when you're looking at the bounce back, I think what was a very encouraging sign is he's going to use every setback as a learning opportunity, and he's going to put in the work to get better. I thought another thing that was very telling, I was able to get some time with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Obviously, his resume speaks for itself. Completely different games, but his game was on a skill set game as well, not being a physical center. And he was telling me when I talked with him that his approach when he went up, against the Boston Celtics, the Detroit Pistons during all those finals matchups in the 80s was, what? Lean on my conditioning to, tire out these other big men. And when they get tired, that's when I use my sky hook. So that's, I think, low hanging fruit number one. Get the conditioning up to speed, but also lean on your skills that got you there as opposed to not worrying about your physicality. No doubt, when you look at Draymond Green or any other physical big man and Nikola Jokic, they're going to use that to try to intimidate him. Like that's what every rookie goes for. But he has enough skills in his toolbox that he's going to still be able to show what he can do as opposed to allowing that lack of strength to reveal vulnerabilities on what he can't do. But I think the other thing is he's not going to become Shaq, obviously, but he's going to bulk up. He's going to do what he needs to
might,
do.
Mark, he might not be a 5. Like in the 2 games I saw, they had 5s next to him. He might be like a Tim Duncan 4 for a lot of those early years. That'll kind of protect him from some of those bigger bodies. Now, Duncan had a lot. It was a different landscape back then. There were more Shaq types players, big men. It was a big men's game back in the mid to late 1990s. But I think you'll see during the season whether it's a traditional center or a sturdy body that can defend centers in the lineup when Wembanyama's out there.
It's funny you bring that up. I almost wonder if it's going to be the inverse of Tim Duncan, where we always thought he's a power forward, but there was some sort of secret that he was a center, and Greg Popovich once revealed that he was always a center. Maybe it's the opposite here, where we always viewed Victor Wembanyama as the center position, but in actuality, he's used as a power forward.
Yeah, it could be that way, but they're going to do everything they can to protect him. Rightly so. 19 years old, skinny as a rail. But hell, we saw Chet Holmgren out in Summer League, and he added 13 pounds since last year. You put another 13, 14, 20 pounds on Victor Wembanyama. He's a different player this time next year. So there'll be a learning curve, no doubt, and it might cost him Rookie of the Year when guys like Scoot may be playing exceptionally well. The Thompson twins, they look like they're NBA ready at the moment, at least physically. But I think long-term, he has every opportunity to live up to those lofty expectations. Last thing for you, Summer League reactions. Give me somebody off the grid that impressed you at Summer League.
You're talking about non-Victor Wembanyama?
Yeah, non-obvious, top of mind guys.
Okay. Well, I mean, Scoot Henderson's obviously number 2. I'd say Max Christie with the Lakers. I mean, I don't know how much playing time he's going to get, but he's still under contract. He had spot minutes last season here or there, but I think that he showed a lot of improvement in his ball handling, him attacking the rim, reducing some of the turnovers. I mean, he along with Jalen Hood-Schifino and Maxwell Lewis, they've been the main rotation guys as far as getting some on-court time, to a lesser extent Cole Snyder, but that was the guy that I was impressed with the most as far as what I saw from growth from last season to this season. But again, it's Summer League. It obviously looks much different than it does in the regular season. But I know specifically with the Lakers, with their big picture aspirations, with what they did with retaining a lot of free agents and then upgrading around the margins, that are trying to, really have that same identity during last season's playoff run, where it's LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and then the third star is composite character X, where it's, not a definitive third guy, but a collection of a few guys. And I wouldn't say he falls under the collection of few guys, but he could fall under, hey, we can give you 5-10 minutes of holding down the fort so that everyone else doesn't get burned out during the postseason.
Yeah, I never know what I'm looking at with those second-year guys because they are, they're seasoned, or at least one seasoned in. I was watching Memphis play a couple of times, and, Kenneth Lofton is out there just muscling guys around. David Roddy, who was, a rotation player for that team towards the end, he was muscling guys around. So it's often tough to figure out. Memphis, by the way, someone needs to sign Frankie Ferrari. Like, did you see Frankie Ferrari out there? He's this 6-foot guard.
I saw it through your social media accounts.
I would tell you, Frankie Ferrari is one of the few mustaches I've ever seen an NBA player. Like, if you haven't seen Frankie Ferrari, go Google him and look at my Twitter feed. I posted a picture of when I was watching, like straight up mustache. He legitimately looks like a guy that came to the Thomas and Mack Center thinking there was a pickup game scheduled and somebody gave him a Grizzlies jersey. Like it was great. It was so fun watching him do that. On a serious note, Imani Bates, the kid from Cleveland, this was a kid who was a ballyhooed high school prospect. He was, I saw some clips that were written about him, a few years ago as, being one of the best prospects since LeBron. Like there was some lofty comps being made to Bates during his time in high school. Gets to college, goes to Memphis, Eastern Michigan, complete disaster. Like has health issues, couldn't fit into the team's rotations, had a legal issue that he was dealing with, caused him to slip all the way into late in the second round of the draft where Cleveland picked him up. He was kind of a volume guy the first couple of games. Then I watched his game on, I think it was Monday night when he played against Memphis, and he's raining 3-pointers. He's blocking shots. He's going to the basket and scoring. This is a kid with obvious talent. It's clear just watching him. Can he put it all together? I don't know. That there's a reason he fell all the way to, I think, 49 or 46 or 49 in the draft. But he's legit 6'7", 6'8", great length. His body's going to fill out over the next couple of years. And if you're Cleveland, what are you missing right now? You're kind of missing that 3-and-D guy, like the wing player in that rotation. Not to say Bates is going to be anywhere close to stepping in next year, but as you play this thing forward, somebody that could eventually supplant a Karis LeVert or supplement guys in that rotation. Bates could be it. If I'm looking at second round sleepers, he might be one. He is one that I'm very interested to see develop over the next couple of years.
Yeah, I'll take your word for it. I mean, you saw him more than me, but I think that in general terms, when it comes to him and any guys that are trying to be reclamation projects, sometimes that's the blessing in disguise because they know that they don't have any other choice but to do the right things and show that, when they go to Vegas, it's going to be about the basketball than the off the court fun, and that he knows that he's being scrutinized. And so with that, as you know, Chris, when it comes to summer league evaluations, a lot of times it's not, how many baskets you're scoring. It's the intangibles of the effort and the attitude and how he relates to teammates. So, I share your optimism that it could be a success story.
He was making shots in that game against Memphis while Donovan Mitchell was sitting there courtside. And I'm sure that Bates got a bit of a little more juice with Mitchell in the crowd, but that would be a great, great ad if he finally lives up to the talent we saw in high school. I mean, coming out of high school, he was a 5-star prospect. He was the goods, just never put it together. Maybe at the pro level, different game, different style, maybe a little more maturity. He can finally get it done. All right. Check out Mark Medina, Sportsnaut, Sporting Tribune. Catch him on Fox Sports Radio all the time. Mark, appreciate your time, man.
Chris, appreciate you. Glad you survived Vegas once again for another year.